The Joyful Friar podcast is made possible by the generous support of our friends. To support the podcast, please visit nathan-castle.com and donate today. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Joyful Friar podcast. I'm Father Nathan Castle, your host. This is the Azores edition of the Joyful Friar because I'm here on location with my baby sister, Cathryn. You've met before. In fact, she was the guest on the very first one of these that we did 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Remember that?
It's been a while.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
And welcome to the Azores. This is the view from my house. This is the open window in my studio, which we've bought a house here in the Azores, which we're renovating. And this soon will be operating as a retreat center and for welcoming vacationers.
So you can hear the surf behind us, and there's one bird that's been very cheerful all day today. I've been in here working on a lot of the projects throughout the day. It's in the early afternoon, but it's a gorgeous day here. And where is the Azores anyway? People ask that all the time.
We are right smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We're off mainland Portugal. The Azores is part of Portugal, and there are 9 Azores islands. And if you're from Texas, you'd say the Azores, but we do say Azores here. And estou a aprender português. I am learning Portuguese, but not so much today. We'll keep it all in English.
Okay. Yeah. And today you can see out the window. Let's see if I can it this way. That is the church. Oh, I guess that doesn't work. That's the church. I have to navigate my own finger.
Right.
That's the church there, and behind your head is a few restaurants there around the bend. Part of an old fortress. One of the things here is that
Fortress is
right there.
There.
And many people here have lovely homes, and right next to them is a ruin that's, I don't know, a couple of centuries old or however. And you just see that all over the place, where there's just some place that used to be a building that's now the remains of one.
We call that a whole lot of potential.
Okay. So I'm going to move that back just a little bit. So on this episode, you're my guest, and we've gone over a few things that you would like to talk about. The one that you led with was joy, and the Joyful Friar podcast, and you are a joy expert.
I am. Joy runs in our family. We come from joyful people. We come from people who are intent on making the best of whatever the situation is. Do you remember once upon a time when we used to play the alphabet of awful things to make ourselves feel better?
I don't remember that at all. So tell me about that, and our listeners and viewers.
To start at the start of the alphabet, when you need to feel better, you think of something worse than what you're dealing with right now. So you just do A, B, C, D, E. Like B might be boils, and C might be cirrhosis, and D could be like flaky dandruff, and on and on and on, all the way down to like vomit and zebras with no stripes.
I don't remember why I don't remember that. Because that just seems like, don't you think that would be a vivid childhood memory if you made a practice of thinking of horrible things?
Well, it makes you feel better because at some point you think of something awful that makes you laugh, and then you're off to the races.
Now, why didn't Julie Andrews think about this kind of ideas that she could talk to children, about my least favorite things?
Yes, these are the most awful things. I don't know. I think maybe your other sister taught that to me. We'll blame it on her anyway.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I wasn't even in the picture.
Yes.
Because we're doing whatever that is. But
well, her favorite phrase is "It could always be worse."
I've heard that.
Because it could always be worse, and then we would think of a way in which it could be worse, and it usually involves a moat and alligators and some sort of pestilence or some other awful thing, but
Now, are you sorry you tuned in to this episode of the Joyful
the
Fire
antidote to
Podcast?
joy.
All right, let's see if we can't raise the tone and get back to joy that doesn't move through.
Oh, all right. Yes.
But you mentioned too that you wanted to talk about having the heart of a child, and you went to a childhood memory right away.
Yes, there's that. I think that no matter what was going on in our childhood, when we obviously, well, first of all, if you know Father Nathan's podcast already and you know his books, you know that we came from people who loved us and wanted us and did the best they could to raise us and feed us. And we were fortunate not to have a lot of big difficulties. I think every family has its difficulties and all relationships have their challenges. But we were lucky that we grew up in a household of people who loved us and wanted to keep us safe and get us grown up and send us out into the world. So I'm the fifth of five. And
the only child of five.
And what Nathan calls the only child of five. My story is that they just kept trying until they got the one they really wanted. But you being the middle child, you don't like it when I say that. So
I've heard it enough before. I've heard it about it. I will listen to part of what you say.
Right, brother. So being joyful and having the heart of a child, I think kids are curious, and I think curiosity is a good gateway to joy. Being curious about how does a thing work, or how does this move, or so I'm curious, and I would turn over the rock and poke the thing, and looking to find out more about the world I'm in, but also I think on some level joy seeking. I set out to be joyful, and I'm very rarely disappointed because I just decide I'm going to find it. I often tell people that I'm an expert at silver linings. If I can't find one, I can draw one or spray paint it or just imagine it in my mind that there's got to be a silver lining to this. One of my favorite sayings that I learned from a yoga teacher was when she'd twist us into a difficult pose that we were meant to hold, and then release, she'd say, "It's not forever, it's only for now." And then we'd go on to the next thing. So I kind of think that's the way I look at finding joy.
Right. It reminds me of "this too shall pass." It might be a phrase that some people use.
Yeah. This too shall pass. It's not forever, it's only now. So, and if we string this now and find joy, and then string the next now and the next now, I think we can just keep faking it till we make it and find that we're in a better mood or in a better circumstance.
Right. Well, viewers and listeners of this podcast might have heard this from me before, because I go back to it a lot, that Meister Eckhart, the Dominican mystic, used for his night prayer an examination of conscience that asks the question, did I get younger today? Because he heard Jesus say in the Gospels, unless you have the heart of a child, you can't enter into the kingdom of heaven. Not that you won't be allowed, you just won't want to, because it's too fun. And if you've lost a taste for childlike fun and joy, it won't interest you. So he would go through his day and examine his conscience with that in mind. Did I get younger today? As he went through the hours of the day, thinking of how the day had gone. And if he arrived at the conclusion that no, I did not get younger today, and maybe I even got older, whatever that meant to him, he would apologize to God and say, "I'm sorry, I wasted a perfectly good day. I promise you I'll be 2 days younger tomorrow." And then he'd go to sleep.
I like that.
So I do that sometimes.
I like that a lot.
Well, is that any different from optimism? You used that word earlier when we're talking about doing this show.
I think so, in a slight way, because maybe pre-joy, I'm still imagining that I'm going to get there. So that's what I would call optimism. Optimism is a step toward joy, or it might be when you're in the middle of deciding yourself out of a bad mood. Because, the only thing that we can change about situations sometimes is how we're going to receive them and how we might internalize them, whether we're going to have a boundary around what's going on in our life and in our community and our surroundings, and decide to keep our heart in an optimistic, hopeful place. Like, for example, the last time we came to Tucson, we had a flight delay, and everybody had to get off the plane, and we didn't go again until the next day, and involved a night in a hotel room without your luggage and that sort of thing. You've probably all been through something similar. And we were one of the first people off the plane. And there were two men at the ticket counter that were very helpful. And I just said, thank you very much. I know that what you're about to do is difficult. You'll be at it a long time. And I really appreciate you're doing this. I know you didn't break the plane, but I know you're going to fix it so that we can all get on another one. And they sort of relaxed into like, yes, exactly. Right up until somebody came in from behind me and was like, you don't seem to understand why I need to get where I'm going. And then I looked at him and I'm like,
have a nice evening.
This is your life right now, but I'm over here cheering for you, and I'm smiling. And I texted you that, this isn't great, isn't not perfect, but the guys that are helping us are lovely. And that's the way we decided to receive it. And
that's the truth too. I remember seeing a cartoon not too long ago about Pollyanna and hell. And, you can imagine the cartoon drawing of, flames and rocks and demons, and Pollyanna has brought graham crackers, chocolate, and marshmallows.
It's going to be hot. We may as well make some
We can do some more. So, but I don't find her that annoying when she's like this. To tell you the truth, you might just think, "Oh my God, I don't know if I can take that." But you don't have a crass way of insisting that everybody be cheerful all the time. You just are kind.
I just try to be kind, and I think that if we, especially when we're feeling down, look around and imagine somebody that might feel worse than you. Like, we didn't have to travel with an infant on a hip and a toddler in the stroller.
Yes.
I watched another couple doing that, and they were very weary. And I just intentionally beamed love in their direction. And there was a moment when that mom and I made eye contact, and I just said, like, send her a little kiss. Just, you're doing a good job, Mom. And she smiled. So that was me just trying to spread the optimism and maybe a little bit of a joyful feeling that we're all in this together and we're going to get through it.
I think you're more extroverted than I am in that way, but I have my own way. Especially airports and airplanes, I just find them so full of tense people that are competing for space and are inclined to be cranky if there's a delay or a problem with the plane or anything like that.
Right.
I pray before I go in that I can be a solar panel, and I just soak up God's love, magnify it, and throw it out there all around me like that invisible force field.
I like that.
And when I'm on a plane, I pray for whoever here is troubled, or you don't know the reason for their travels. Maybe somebody's going to the funeral, or they have some occasion, sad occasion, that's caused them to even be on a plane. It's one of the things I do.
I like that.
So you mentioned surviving change is one of the things you'd like to talk about today.
Well, as you know, I've gone through divorce and relocation. I've also survived a pretty significant hurricane. You and I have gone through hurricanes. Growing up in Southeast Texas, hurricanes are like a seasonal thing. Every summer, it seems like you're doing hurricane preparation. A lot of people know what that's like now. But in the Virgin Islands, where I lived in 1995, I had a significant damage to the home I was living in, and it was kind of like a total loss situation. But I was one of the lucky people because I was in a home with the roof that stayed on, and I was able to get out the next day and look around and survey damage, and then get to work trying to pick the pieces up and help other people. And I think surviving is not just a skill set where you learn how to do things to move through change, but it's also an attitude. And you have to make a decision that Yes, I think it was the quote that's attributed to Churchill, Winston Churchill, when you're going through hell, keep going. Unless you're just at the very entrance and you can turn around and go back, but if you're halfway through.
Yeah, tell the hurricane to go backwards.
You know, we're in this, there's nothing we can do but be in it and wait for it to pass, and it goes back to this too shall pass. I just, want to believe that whatever I'm in, it'll get better. And somehow or another, it always has. Like when I went through divorce and moved to California to be near you, to sort of have a recovery period. It was when Fitbits were brand new and everybody was at the time where you put your Fitbit on, and if you, at the end of the day, you don't get to the 10,000 steps, you saw people like running in place to get their numbers. Not you, you didn't join that phase, but I did. And I didn't want to get out of bed, but I set an alarm for very early. I put my clothes and my shoes near the bed. And my mantra was, I don't know where I'm going, but I march at dawn. I don't know where I'm going, but I march at dawn. And I wouldn't let the snooze button snooze me. I would get up, get dressed, and get to marching. And I was at that time averaging about 10 miles a day, 5 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon. But that's what it took for me to walk off my sorrow and gain a sense of place and get my footing. And at first, people in that neighborhood didn't want to smile at me because they were just looking down. But then I started faking my smile and getting in their path and making them smile at me. And eventually I had what I thought of was a little morning smile ministry, that I was just going to go out and fake smile at people. And then all of a sudden there was a day when I smiled and it didn't feel like a forced march. I was smiling because I was actually feeling happy. And it took a while, but that consistency and that determination that I'm going to continue marching and eventually there will be a path. The path will unfold. And it did. And about that time, Fitbit sent me a message. Congratulations, you've logged enough steps to make it to Mexico. I'm thinking, gosh, I should have just kept going. I would have been in Mexico by now.
Yeah, instead of going around the block.
I was going around and around.
But it was such a nice block to go.
It
I
was.
didn't have to go to Mexico.
And instead of going around and around, I envisioned that I was spiraling upward. So I'm spiraling upward, I'm gaining ground. And what happens when we go up is we gain a vantage point. So I was able in that around and around to gain a better vantage point. And I ended up actually making some friends in the neighborhood. And
you did, and some friends of mine took you in, and you lived in their home, and then you cooked at our house, and we had lots of adventures that would never have happened had a change not been a change, unwelcome change come your way. Just deal with it.
And that's about turning a page. Just, okay, that chapter is finished. And we turn the page and we start whatever's next. And if we have an attitude of, oh, I can't wait to see how this turns out, just be in it and all will be well.
Well, we were talking earlier about the importance of just being in the present moment, of living this now, because it's the only now that you got, and there'll be other nows later on, but live this one because it's the one we got. A lot of the people that we help in the Afterlife work that my Afterlife Interrupted books speak to, a lot of the ones that did get stuck, I don't use that phrase very much anymore, but it was in the subtitle of the first Afterlife Interrupted book.
Right.
Many of the ones that did get stuck really did so because they had a hard time adjusting to the now that they were in. They wanted to be alive on Earth again, or they wanted to rehash the car accident that killed them, or they had something that was dragging them down about not being here right now. And eventually they all learn that. It's a skill that you can learn here or hereafter, that, well, the now that you're in is the only one you got. And can you find your peace in it and look forward in joyful hope if you don't see anything to be joyful about just this second. And Christian language, it's Good Friday turning into Easter morning, and it might not be this instant, but it's just a few days. And it's or even the nerve of calling Good Friday good, looking for something good happening, even in the worst of times, trusting that something good is going to come of this. I don't think that's so hard to do, at least to try and repeat if you have to.
Right.
You mentioned a time that we were together in Moore, Oklahoma, and I'm not sure why. Why did Moore, Oklahoma come to mind for you?
Oh, that conversation, I was mentioning that because that was the first time that I introduced the story of our mom's death to an audience.
I see.
And there was probably 70 people in that room, and I led them on a guided meditation of surviving their death.
Would you remind them why we were in Moore, Oklahoma to begin with? It's not just any old place.
Yeah, we were in Moore, Oklahoma because they'd had a terrible twister and a tornadic event. I don't know what it was on the T scale of tornadoes, but it was a big one. And a lot of people died, and there was a lot of damage, not just to people's homes, but also to schools and churches and hospital buildings. And no one that lived in that town survived the aftermath of it without being directly affected some one way or another.
And most of those who died were elementary school children who died in the basement of their school after the teachers and staff did everything they were supposed to do, take them to the basement. And
Yes.
so on, and it flooded and they drowned.
Yes.
So there was compounded tragedy because it was so many young people. And then the first responders mostly were of an age where they had elementary school kids. And so
Right.
we were there about 9 months later to help people process. So we were using the Wizard of Oz because it has this big tornado in it. And we were using that children's story with a big tornado that has, has a happy ending. We weren't bringing chirpy happiness to Moore, Oklahoma, but we were trying to help them look at what are blessings that have come in the last 9 months that would not have come your way without this horror.
And introducing them to all of that using your book, and Toto 2, The Wizard of Oz, as a spiritual adventure. Hope I got the subtitle correct.
You did.
But I hadn't said it out loud.
You edited it.
I did. But that's been like.
Was that 2011? That
2011.
was 13 years ago.
It's been a long while, but so we were in Moore for that weekend retreat, which was held at a Catholic church, but it was a community-wide event. And then we went and did some work at the local high school as well. So that's why I mentioned more in my notes that if we wanted to go through something of a guided meditation for your audience on surviving your death, and we could do that on this show, or we could do it at another time.
Well, we have that in mind to do. But actually, that high school was in Joplin, Missouri, because we also went there. Joplin, Missouri, and Moore, Oklahoma is a large suburb of Oklahoma City. They both had really devastating tornadoes. Joplin's killed 165 people in 30 minutes. So we went there and brought the Wizard of Oz material and the pastor there had said, it's been a year, but my people haven't gotten to do anything that they were planning to do in the last year. Everything has been reactive to the tornado. Even if you didn't lose your house, there was even survivor guilt there that, many of my fellow citizens in a town of about 30,000, took this horrible hit. And anyway, we helped them begin looking ahead and looking past a little bit, but looking at the present moment and trying to build a better future. Well, you have an interest in helping people who are perhaps approaching their death get ready for it. And I think we might do, you could introduce that topic and then do a guided meditation if you'd like to.
Okay. Well, I have a belief the same as you, and for us it's a certainty that we survive our physical death, and it's beyond the quantum physics of nothing ever dies, it just turns into something else. Our mom, Miriam Castle, lived to 91 years, 4 months. And and I think about the last 10 years of her life, she was using what I would call a bucket list approach. She was, and even though I don't like the term bucket list on all the things you want to do before you kick the bucket, she was marking on the calendar what she'd like to live for. And she put it on the calendar if it was a birth of a baby or a high school graduation, maybe a wedding, a reunion, some sort of event. And that for a long while included baseball season, Houston Astros,
Yes.
And also football season, watching the Dallas Cowboys play. So she drummed up reasons to live, things to look forward to, things to live for. And at that time, she was the last of her immediate circle. Obviously, she had her children, but her husband had died, and all but one of her very best friends had died. And even the next set of friends that she'd made in the 10-year period, when she moved into an independent living, from our home, into independent living in a community, those people had also died. So she'd gotten really accustomed to attending a lot of memorial services and then having to pick up and make new friends again. So she, on this particular visit, she was perfectly healthy, and there wasn't any particular health problem other than being 91 years old and having congestive heart failure. You know,
Did you hear what that sounded like? There's nothing wrong with her except nothing doesn't work.
Sorry, it's just
How can you enjoy the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
exactly, but she was an old woman who had an old heart, and it was starting to not function at its best any longer. So we visited, we got her hair done, went to the nail salon, went out to lunch, we shopped a little, everything was great. And if you remember, I told you I was going to visit her because I had a sense that she might be dying soon and that it was urgent.
Mm-hmm.
So I got there and there was nothing urgent about it. So we did all the fun things that we did. And then one evening, she said, I think I'm done. I think I'm finished now. And I said, tell me what that means. And she said, well, I think I've done everything here that I meant to do, and I'm ready to go. And our first reaction, our first instinct when someone speaks that way might be to say, oh, don't think like that. Come on now, there's so much life in you. Don't you do that. You need to stay here. You must, you should. And instead of shoulding on her about she should want to stay alive, I said, well, tell me what that means. And she says, well, I really think that I've done everything, and the people I love are mostly all gone ahead of me, and I think I'm ready to join them. And I don't know where it came from at the time, but I said, well, you are a woman of great faith. You pray, you attend church, you pray the rosary. If you're going to die soon, that means you believe you're going to be born into eternal life. And she said, oh, well, yes, of course. And I said, well, if you think you're going to die, well, it'll come eventually, whatever time that is. Then if you're going to die and you're going to be born again into eternal life, that means you get a birthday party. And she said, oh, well, I hadn't thought of it that way. And I said, well, I think you get a birthday party. And she said, okay. And I said, well, I think it's time to plan. Let's start looking forward. The same way you use the calendar now to plan out events, let's plan your afterlife. Let's plan a happily ever afterlife birthday party. And she thought that was a pretty crazy idea, even coming from me. But she said, okay, I'll play. And I said, well, let's make the invitation list. Who would be on the guest list? And the only prerequisite is they have to be dead. So whoever it is, they can come to your party, but they have to have already died. And we started, I got out a notepad like this one. And I said, shoot, like, give me the names. And she was like, of course, your father, and so on and so on and so on. And we got a full list. And in the middle of it, she said, "Oh, and the girl from second grade, the little girl from second grade." And I said, "The little girl from second grade, who's that?" And she said, "You know how when you're small, the only people you know are your family, and then your cousins and aunts and uncles, and it expands out." She said, the first person I ever loved was the little girl from second grade. And I said, "Oh, tell me." And she said, "Well, she was just nice to me. She was somebody that I loved." And I said, "What happened to her?" And my mom answered, "I don't know. She moved away and I never saw her again. I sure hope she's dead because I can't wait to meet her again." And in that, I sure hope she's dead because I can't wait to meet her again. It felt like everything switched from sitting here in an aged body, not knowing what else to do, to now being really excited about afterlife. And whether that's faith or whether that's pretend or imagination, I think we all can do that. And however, whatever your faith construct is, I wasn't asking her to believe anything that she didn't already believe, but for you that are listening to this, you don't have to be of a particular faith construct to pretend or to imagine. And what I'd like to invite you to do is imagine that you survive your death. Just play like, pretend that you survive your death. And imagine that you get an afterlife birthday party. So the first thing to do, number one, is create a guest list. And again, the only rule is whoever you invite to your afterlife birthday party has to already be dead. It's just that simple. You can invite your family, your friends, movie actors, artists, all the famous people, doesn't matter. Elvis, or whomever. So the guest list. And if you take a little time to write that down, I think what happens is you start evoking memories of the people we love and why do we love a person, and we can have all sorts of fun with just the list. The next thing I would suggest that we did with my mom, I said, okay, every party needs a venue. So approach this like a party planner, pick a table. And in her case, she picked the dining room table in her grandmother's Victorian home. And she had never once told me about her grandmother's house.
I've never heard of it.
So here we are. She's 91 years old, and she's now telling me two stories I've never heard before. This is getting really rich. So she said, "Oh, it was a beautiful dining room, and the table was exquisite, but oh, that room's too small. We couldn't hold it. They couldn't hold everyone." And I said, "Well, remember, this is your imagination. So blow out a wall and extend the table as long as you want it to be. Just extend it out into infinity. And you can actually add tables to it, like a picnic table or a table at the beach or wherever. Just keep winding this table until you get it out into infinity." And I said, "So tell me where it ends." And in our case, it ended under the twin oak tree at the farm, which was a beautiful spot and perfect for the other end of the table.
I have a photograph of that on the wall of my bedroom.
Yeah. So that's the venue. So pick a table and have fun with that, extending that table out and joining tables together, etc., until you have the venue the way you want it. The next thing that we did was set the table with all the different the china that my dad bought her as a wedding present, no, it wasn't a wedding present. That would have been many years later, but some significant anniversary, I think. And then we also set a chinette area where the bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken might go or what have you. But we set this table with all this lovely china. You might want to order flowers for your table or a decorative tablecloth or something. So just imagine what the birthday party setting would be like in your afterlife birthday party. Make it up, pretend it, and set the table. We did this over a course of about 3 days. the next day we started on the menu, and there were more stories. She told more stories about favorite dishes that her grandparents had made and her mom made, and things that I didn't know about. That was something she'd never told me before. So it became for us a really great opportunity to share story. But we got a menu of all of her favorite dishes, and again, storytelling, set the table, put all the food on it that you want. Imagine every single food you love all at the table. You can have as much of it as you want, and you can eat dessert first because it really doesn't matter. And you might want a DJ. You might want to pick a song list. We didn't do that in my mom's iteration of this, but what happened was she went from saying, I think I'm done, I don't have anything left that I need to live for, to saying, I can't wait to get this part finished so that I can go on to my happily ever after life. At the end of this exercise, she felt unburdened with the idea of having a thing to live for. And instead, she felt hopeful and optimistic for the afterlife that was awaiting her. And I think that, especially for people who don't have a particular faith construct, an exercise like this can take out some fear, the fear of dying. And I think if death is X, we work backward from X. Go to that, go to the scary thing, do an exercise like the happily ever afterlife birthday party, and then work back to now. And I believe that can help us lead more joyful lives, just in the planning of it, in the play life. So I invite you to pretend that you survive your death. And I'd like you to plan a really extraordinary party that celebrates your life, all the people that you love, and all the things you've loved in this life. And when you're planning that, I imagine you're going to have a whole lot of things on the list that evoke happy memories. And it's kind of like a life review, if you will, of all the happy things. And I think that in itself is enough to bring joy. So I hope you'll try it. And that's really all I have to say about it.
Well, I'd tag on a few little things from the work that we've done on all these folk who have died already. One I was just listening to this morning was talking about food in the afterlife, and he said people might wonder, why would there even be food in the afterlife, because you're not in the body that you used to have to feed. And he said it's just that people enjoy eating, and they enjoy cooking, and they enjoy the fellowship of a shared meal, and anything that people enjoy belongs here.
I like that.
I like the way he said that. And for those of you who are from at least the Jewish and Christian traditions, there's lots of references in our scriptures to a heavenly banquet. And I think a lot of the people, at least in the first century Israel, were hardly ever well fed. You know, they were very often subsistence level folk who hoped there'd be a good catch of fish, because if there wasn't much to eat. So in our scriptures, very often people are imagining luxurious feasts that only wealthy people could have afforded, that they would be invited to, or they could host. So that's part of it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. All right. You have any last words of wisdom that you want to sign off with?
I think I want to give your readers or listeners, viewers, I guess, an idea of why we're here. So my husband is originally from Lisbon, and his family has roots in the Azores, and we were visiting here about this time last year. It was in April. We're recording in May. But it wasn't that long ago that we visited here, and I said, oh, I could live here. And we subsequently bought a house without a lot of forethought, but we found obviously an oceanfront house on the island of Fayal in the Azores. And it's a large house with a rental apartment on the bottom floor. And everything I look at and touch needs renovation. So there's a whole lot of optimism happening around here right now.
It's indoor camping,
Yes. We run on extension cords and
have to turn lots of things off to run a hairdryer or blows a fuse, that kind of thing.
The house needs new electrical, new plumbing. It needs some walls knocked out, and we'll do all new paint, all new windows and doors, and new flooring. So it's a project, but when it's finished, it's going to be a really lovely retreat center that
I'll visit. I won't be moving here.
No,
I'm only here for 2 weeks, and I'm here with the permission of my superior and so on. So
you're not
I'm not
running
running
away
away from my life. I'm just spending a little time with my sister.
But when the day comes, we'll be able to invite you here for a couple weeks at a time. And if you wish to hold gatherings here, we can't house everyone, but there are lovely hotels on the island of Fayel in the Azores. And we're hopefully going to be able to, particularly for your European fans or followers, have you here for, maybe a long weekend retreat or something like that. And I also do writing workshops and some life coaching workshops as well that will be hosted here. So that's why we're recording live from the Azores today. And I think I'd like to close by taking the camera and just showing you what we've got here. So you can guide our readers through a little, maybe a farewell prayer, if you like, or a slight little farewell meditation.
All right. Well, remember, I pray for you all the time anyway, but you can see there's a grand church there that was built in 1778. It has that right over the door. Our Lady of something, I can't remember the name, which title it is, but it's dedicated to Mary. Anyway, Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day and the opportunity to be together. We're grateful for all the people that listen to or watch this podcast. We hope that we've been a blessing to you somehow. And if this is not a great day in your life, it's your now, and we hope that that you can find a blessing in it or anticipate the one that's right around the corner.
And remember, it's not forever, it's only now.
Right. So this is Father Nathan Castle and my sister Cathryn. We're signing off and wishing you all the best.
Wow.
God bless you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Joyful Friar. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can visit me at nathan-castle.com. Send me a message by clicking the contact button. God bless.